Hi, and welcome to the August Forum. I'm your host, Andrew, and I'll be sharing the stories of fashion industry professionals, creatives, and entrepreneurs about their journeys and experiences as they advance within this ever-growing industry. The August Forum, as an extension of the shop itself, allows you to have the ability to listen to those in the space, so whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, trying to break into the fashion industry, or just curious about the ins and outs, we hope these stories will help you to achieve your goals. In today's episode, we feature Jordan Thomas, a creative consultant within the fashion industry. His work has spanned from marketing the Arc'teryx flagship store on Spring Street to the most recent Stussy and Timberland collab. Today, we'll discuss Jordan's process of implementing his ideas into the projects he has worked on, from working on a video in which he showcases beta AR jackets used for their non-intended purposes, to his work on the Solomon and Better Gift Shop collaboration. The conversation will continue in his views of 2023 and how he perceives how the fashion and art landscape will soon change. This is the August Forum. All right, so for today's episode, I'm joined with Jordan. Jordan, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm chilling. So before we get started, do you want to introduce to people who you are, what you do, and then how you would describe your style? Because I think a lot of us, or at least how I got to know you, is through your style, basically.
Yeah. So my name is Jordan. I'm from New York, from the Bronx, born and raised. What I do is pretty much consulting. So whether it's from design, marketing to production, all facets of anywhere within fashion I've worked in. As far as my personal style, I'll definitely say it's more about functionality,
Mm-hmm.
quality, and I'm sort of a futurist. So I play around with like silhouettes at some points when it comes to like certain pieces. But yeah, that's how I
Fire.
could definitely say it, but definitely more so function and
Mm-hmm.
quality. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk into a lot of
Yeah.
the companies and brands you've worked with, but do you want to give a list of some of the places you've worked with and like some of the projects you've worked on?
So, I mean, as far as brands that I've worked with, going back to like way back, I've worked with A Life, Better Gift Shop, Stussy, Arc'teryx, Champion.
You've done it
That's
all.
pretty much yeah,
He's done
that's
it
pretty much
all.
what I could think of right now on hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a few more,
Uh,
but yeah.
so now gonna get into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of the pod today. So you work in a consulting, you work with and marketing, operations, design. Do you sometimes find yourself to be more kind of a creative when you work with something so artistic in fashion and in clothing?
I mean, honestly, I feel like creativity is part of the job. I mean,
Hmm.
there's really no rules to anything. So, I mean, it requires you to be creative if you're trying to do something different,
Hmm.
you know? So I feel like creativity is that's just part of the job. So just to say like I am a creative, I mean, I just like to do the job and do the job as best as I can and
Yeah.
finding different ways to do it. I say I just definitely like to work smarter and not harder.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So when I first started researching you and getting to know who you were with the Nepenthes article that you did, a big thing about it was from you being from New York and kind of how you said that New York has always been back. It's never left. It's just kind of adapted in new ways. But for you personally,
Mhm.
how does like being from New York, being from the Bronx, like how does that influence the way you like perceive the world itself and also like aid you in design and consulting and the work that you get to do?
I mean, honestly, when it comes to me like doing design, like I'm always referencing back to New York. I mean, I feel like with New York, it's some of the harshest critics live in New York. So
Yeah.
whenever I'm designing something or trying to put something out there, I pretty much try to think what my harshest critic would say whenever I'm putting something out. And if it's coming across as something that doesn't really fit within the ethos of like how I feel, that's actually traditional or within the concept of what I think is natural, then that's when I'm not feeling happy about it.
Being in the fashion industry as long as Jordan has, his knowledge of the way it all moves and interacts with art and movements was something that I really enjoyed talking about. His perception of the past 5 years of fashion, moving at such a rapid growth, and the trends that have come and gone, is something that many brands have to look at now. For him, however, his analysis on the way it now has slowly become uniform is something that is not as similar to what the past 5 years have been. As he predicts we slowly move towards this shift, we talk about art as well and the way that it has also shifted within our culture. As someone obsessed with colors and details, Jordan's fascination with art is something that is also evident. He sees that it has shifted, but that's what art is meant to do, shift the cultural landscape. Fashion and art go hand in hand, and to me, in my conversation with Jordan, he seems to have both of them in the palm of his hands and utilizes them in his work.
New York is just one big melting pot, you know, so it's allowed me to see a lot. I'm able to travel to other places and I take away from those places because I mean, those pieces are actually in New York, but it's definitely great to see New York. It's kind of like seeing the world from like a broader lens, you can say,
Mhm.
you
Y
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, do you find yourself, especially being in New York, just really getting inspired day to day and you kind of perceive it differently each day and you kind of find new things within it?
I mean, yeah, it's just all about how you look at it. Just from walking down the street, I might see something that wasn't there yesterday or a certain change, or like even like there's like the poster boards where like, they rip down all the posters and seeing that, and it's like you see these layers of posters over the years. Like I don't know, like it's always something to take away just from walking around New York. So
Yeah.
definitely,
I mean, to go back to that Nepentha's article again, something else I kind of picked up was, you're really into music and even going to shopping at like catalog with clothing and all that. You really were a part of that culture from a young age. So, like, what for you was the biggest inspiration on your style and the way you perceive your work now because of it?
definitely me going to catalog and talking to like my mentor Andre Munoz. He pretty much developed everything that I'm into now. And he's part of the reason why like I hate the things that I hate. I can be a harsh critic sometimes, which is definitely I blame him for. But yeah, definitely going to see him. He's put me onto a lot of things as far
Mhm.
as like Comme des Garçons and Raf Simons, like early on, probably when I'm like 16, 17. Like even down to like him just saying like, yo, if you're gonna buy a shirt, make sure you buy like a really good shirt. Like you
Yeah.
don't want to just buy just like something simple. And even down to like Ralph Lauren, like of just like classic design like that.
Mhm.
So he was just somebody that shaped and molded my overall thought process of how I view things today.
Yeah, I think last time we talked, you kind of told me how you had him hold a CDG shirt for you for like 2 months before you went to actually go
Yeah,
buy it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I still have that CDG piece today. It was a Comme des Garçons Homme Plus sweatshirt
Mhm.
from 1997. It's falling apart, but like I refuse to let it go. It's
Is
such a
it
good
just like
piece.
is yeah, do you find that I feel like for me, I have pieces that I've had since I really got into fashion and I don't really wear anymore, but it's like that's one of the first things I ever bought for myself, knowing the story behind it and
Hmm.
the emotions it made me feel. Is that what that CDG crew is for you?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. It's pretty much the first CDG piece that I've ever purchased ever
Mhm.
with money that like I worked to get. It was like the first
Yeah.
piece that like I saved up for, and I was like, yo, please. So yeah, it definitely brings back a lot of memories. Like I still fit into it, but I just don't wear it enough. I should.
Mhm, yeah.
you know
Going into the music, again, this is something else. We briefly talked about it last time, but, for you, music has really shaped you, but the music you like is something that our both of you and I's parents kinda taught us and showed us, but we are like at the time, we're like, "No, this isn't what's cool," but then you later find out that, "Damn, like, my parents do kind of have good music taste." Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
Like, maybe some of the artists that you found that your parents kinda put you on, but you didn't wanna admit it?
yeah. I mean, honestly, my he's a jazz musician,
Mhm.
so he would play a lot of Miles, a lot of John Coltrane, McCoy Tyner, Pharoah Sanders. He would play a lot of that music, but it's like as a child, I'm like, I don't want to hear that. I want to listen to like Jay-Z and things like that. But like being in New York and like just meeting different people in different walks, you
Mhm.
kind of pick up on certain things. And it's just to go back to even like being at catalog. I remember hanging out there and it's like he was playing Love Supreme. And pretty much like I was like, oh, like I know this album. And he's like, oh, like how do you know this? I was like, oh, my father plays this all the time. Just because it was a friend of mine's actually liked it, it made me like it more just because it just seemed like I don't know, it just seemed like it was cooler at the time. It's just like
Yeah.
seeing my dad as cool at that point in my life, I was just like, nah. Like
Do you
my
think
dad cool, you
do
know?
you think your dad's cool now? Looking at it
Oh
now.
yeah. He's the coolest guy in the world. He's cool. He's cool. He's cool. He's part of the reason too why I'm into style and like just wearing my hats a certain way, things like that. That all comes from my dad. So
Yeah. So we'll later talk about, something we're looking forward to in the future and kind of like really about details about certain aspects of art and fashion. But, you know, we talked about how you're really into details and when that started because of your dad too. So he's really, and
hmm
like the way he wears his suits. And from there, you really learn colors and the color palettes that you really like. Do
hmm
you really gain a lot of your influence and inspiration from him?
somewhat some inspiration influence does come from him. And I mean, a lot of it comes on my own too, just off the strength of the things that I like. There's definitely similarities and things that we like as far as colors and textures and things like that. But it's also a lot of things that I might wear and he'll just look at me like, nah, that's not it, So, but yeah, it's just, I think that's just all off of just generational gap, like him wearing a suit is like the equivalent of me maybe wearing a sweatsuit, like
Yeah, yeah.
it's a different thing, and we just came up in different times. But yeah, I could definitely say some of that does come from him. Yeah.
With my conversation with Jordan today, getting to know him more about his introduction to fashion and how he got to where he is today, the small details mattered. That was a recurring theme on today's episode, is how Jordan is able to perceive the small details to aid him in his work. From the small details of how he talked about how his dad dressed to the introduction into fashion and shopping at catalog, those small details mattered to him. Looking at Jordan's work, his utilization of New York within the way he approaches each project is evident. We will get into some of these projects deeper, but his use of the melting pot of New York to represent its different facets is unlike no other, as he continues to push the boundaries of how to perceive fashion and its functionality through the projects he has worked on, such as the marketing campaign on Beta AR jackets for Arc'teryx, in which we'll discuss how he was able to bring aspects of New York and the city life to a jacket meant for all-round purpose, and to a brand that has, for the past 30 years at least, perceived for those outside of the city. But Jordan and his work is able to communicate to a whole different audience that was not seen before.
And now, kind of going into a little bit more of your work, you've had the opportunity to work with Arc'teryx, Better Gift Shop and Solomon, and now recently with Stussy and Timberland. When you approach all these different projects and all these different lines of works and all these different types of brands with different types of values, how do you approach that with each with differently from the other?
I mean, honestly, it's just you kind of have to go into it with the ethos of both brands and like just to understand both brands. I think when you're going into it designing for a brand, you're sort of a storyteller.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how can you weave this story to make sense for both brands that makes sense to the world and that people actually are receptive to the story? So, I mean, that's just how I go about it. Like, I mean, with Stussy and Timberland, like that was just like a whole team effort, and the same thing with the Solomons too, but it's all one big story. That's how I look at it. Just weaving a story for people just to get and understand and just to feel something.
Yeah. I mean, going into the first collab and the first one of probably the newest thing, and that's on everybody's mind right now, which is the Stussy and Timberland collab. When it was first announced, everyone was super hyped about it. I remember going on social media and reading about it. It had a lot of tracking behind that. But for you, how did that start and what was that kind of process like for you?
It was a fun process, just being able to work with a brand that I've always wanted to work with since I was a kid, and being able to work with all the guys that are there and just pretty much build something from the ground up and work with Timberland. I mean, the whole process of that, it was a long process, but it's just everybody is just throwing ideas and you kind of have to catch them and
Hmm.
put it together and, make it make sense. And you narrow it down and you keep narrowing it down until you have a finished product. So,
Hmm.
that's the best way I could say about it, but it was just all completely just team effort of that whole entire process,
Yeah, because
just like everybody. Mhm.
yeah, it was like you, Hugo, Frazier, you guys all kind of on a collab worked on that boot. Can you talk to me about what you specifically worked on and kind of maybe some challenges you had along the way about it?
Really no challenges with it. But I mean, as far as what I worked on was the hardware, to me was the most important. I just knew that I wanted silver nickel plated hardware And then also just like selection of the actual leather. It's like a real nappy suede, but then like a real butter soft leather. He go definitely with the ostrich, and even like with the double S on the lace loop. I wanted it to be hollow at one point, and I remember Fraser was like, "Let's try to make it enamel," which actually I think it looks way more stronger,
Hmm.
So, and then some of the brand placement, as far as like the Stussy on the tongue and embossed, that was just a nice call out too. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, yeah, that's how it all came about. Back and forth and talking and like, oh, I think this will look cool and add that and take that away and put that there,
Yeah.
So
Any
yeah.
do you any reason like why now? Why do this project at this moment in time? Do you have any insight with that?
I mean, no insight with that, but I mean, just from the perspective of somebody just from the outside looking in, I just think it makes sense.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just the way things are going as far as how people are dressing. People are getting more simplified with how they're dressing. And I mean, I feel like people are starting to go back to basics with footwear and things like
Hmm.
that. And, with like the resurgence, well, I don't even want to say resurgence, but with like New Balance just being like in the forefront of just people just wearing like 990 V3s to like V6s that just came
Hmm.
out. And then also you have Solomon, but like not even just the lab, you have the main Solomon inline shoes and just simple colors. Like I feel like people are simplifying the way that they dress. So I mean, for Timberland, it's a simple shoe, especially if you look at that actual World Hiker boot.
Yeah.
It was only re-released, I think, once before, and then this is the third release since it like actually officially came out. So I just think it just all made sense as far as just timing in the moment that Stussy is having. I mean, Stussy has never went anywhere, but it's in a moment right now as far
Yeah.
as a lot of people are looking at Stussy. So I just feel like it's just all perfect timing. It was just all serendipitous.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember, yeah. When it got announced and seeing it basically come out, it was perfect timing in my opinion. It was everyone's really into like stuff like road boots and just really into this idea of using boots as a day-to-day kind of fashion item. And then with Stussy being the brand right now, probably one of the biggest brands that in 2022 that was on everyone's tip of the tongue. It was just a crazy time and it really like worked out perfectly, honestly.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
How did you
Yeah.
wear yours though?
So I was in Paris last week. I wore the black ones every day. That was the only
Really?
shoe that I packed with me. So they're pretty broken in, and the tan ones I wore for the first time yesterday,
Mm,
which like I like the way they look too. I actually like swapped out the blue laces on the tan ones and put the green ones from the black on there.
yeah.
So it gave it a different feel, which I do like.
How's seeing Hugo in Paris? I know you guys ran into each other while you guys were there.
Oh yeah, no, he's a good friend. I saw him yesterday. Got to
Oh
see him
yeah.
all the time. Yeah, no, he's a good friend. He's a good
Yeah.
friend. So it's always good seeing him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Going into a different brand you've worked with, Arc'teryx, you worked on the campaign with Ali Bo, and then you
hmm
helped on the marketing of opening up their flagship store and on Spring Street. Can you tell me about how that both came about and what about that was super rewarding for you?
So I mean, like working on out of the Spring Street store was just it was good because like that's just the main store. That was the first Arc'teryx store in New York. So being able to work out of there and help with marketing was amazing. Definitely just being able to put campaigns together with Joel and his brand Dominguez, and then working with Emilio Chavez on like videography and just putting together these like weird videos that show the mixture between New York and nature and just similarities of how New York is just an environment within itself and a terrain all by itself. It was good. It was really rewarding. And then coming together to be able to work with Ali Bo to do those frog skin jackets was amazing too because I think it kind of went over a lot of people's heads, but I mean it was
Hmm.
just our take on just like visually showing the mixture between nature and city, just actually doing something that's just painting an actual natural organic print man-made by airbrush on such a hard shell jacket. I mean, I don't know. I like the concept between the two of them. And so, I mean, it was fun, honestly. Like that was just like a really, really fun moment. to work with Arc'teryx and do those kind of things. You know, I don't think something like that will. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say that it won't be ever done, but I don't see Arc'teryx doing that anymore. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, I mean, hopefully, you know, like I think hopefully they'll do it. I don't know.
I remember that video, I think, with that might have been the Beta AR jacket. And it was kind of someone was just biking throughout the city. And it really kind of gave
Yeah,
a whole different feel from every other marketing campaign that like Arc'teryx has done, where it's a jacket within the city rather than kind of the usually where you see is like in the outdoors and kind of like during hiking and for its use. So it's pretty cool to see that, Arc'teryx kind of expanded into New York and just really try to put its foot down in the city itself. And is that something that you were super proud of as well?
yeah. I mean, honestly, that was the main point of what we was trying to get across. Because it's just we see people wearing Arc'teryx every day in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, some people know what the jacket is for. Some people don't know what it's for. You know, like when I was working there, people would just come in and just ask for a rain jacket.
Hmm.
You know, like it's Gore-Tex, so it's a rain jacket technically, but it's just the Beta AR to me is the most versatile jacket that Arc'teryx has ever done, and it's the one jacket that I think that's constructed for both city and outdoors, with that they made by mistake for that purpose. Because just of like all the features as far as like the pocket placement, it's Gore-Tex Pro, so it breathes better. It has a drop hood, so you're able to remove the hood on and off without having to unzip your jacket. And it's just, yeah, it's so many different intricate features on that jacket that is meant for it to live within both environments.
Hmm.
That's what we wanted to get across, you know. And it's like I felt like it was important for us to find a way to educate the customer through video without having to literally tell them, you know, like you
Yeah.
could do whatever you want in this jacket. You
But it was
know,
like to like
we
really
did like
show them
another
that.
video. Yeah, exactly. And like we did like another video prior to that with Angie Chavez, where it was, we took the jacket hiking and we also took it through the city of her walking, and the whole video was shot on 360. And so the AR and Beta AR stands for all round, and so the whole video was 360 just to play off of the purpose. The overall name of all round, the whole video was shot in 360 all round. So that was
Damn.
just like another story. Yeah, it was just another story that we wanted to tell with the AR. But
That's
yeah,
yeah. I mean, Beta AR jacket, Arc'teryx itself. I mean, with along with Stussy, probably 2021, 2022, and now going to 2023, one of the biggest brands, and especially has really named a name for itself in the fashion scene.
Looking at the Stussy and Timberland collab, Jordan's work on getting those small details down was crucial. When looking at the boot itself, a regular consumer may perceive that there isn't anything at first glance that shows you the amount of details and work went into the collaboration between these two powerhouses, but for a key nine such as Jordan's, the use of hardware and small aspects of the boot allows it to be something special. A brand as hot as Stussy, of course, gains traction with the collaboration such as it did, but the details put into the collaboration so that it not only was a boot that branded Stussy and Timberland, but allowed the boot to have functionality within it, speaks to Jordan's mantra about how he views fashion. We will discuss how fashion is ever growing and changing, but going to ground zero with Jordan, I personally learned the importance of utilizing fashion as a form of functionality within our daily lives and not jumping on each microtrend we may see within the landscape now.
I mean, there's a clear shift in trends with a heavy focus on brands such as Arc'teryx. Do you like
mhm.
the way that that trend has grown the brand itself, or do you kind of believe that there's a lost sight of what the brand truly represents now?
It's a bit of a lost sight with it. Because I mean, honestly, I love the fact of Arc'teryx that they tell the story for the jacket's purpose for what it is. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think that they cater to, like, they try not to cater to that person of like, oh, this is for fashion. But I do think instead of them trying not to cater to that person, I feel like you should educate the person
Hmm.
on why this is functional for both uses, you know? And I just think that there's just kind of a misinterpretation of it because it's just people buy it because it's for fashion, you know? You have some people that just want to post their video of them wearing their jacket in the shower. I mean, it's cool. I get it. It's a flex, cool, whatever. But the thing is, it's just like, yeah, like that's kind of a misinterpretation. I mean, I feel like I look at Gore-Tex jackets as if it's like a car. They all serve different purposes. you're going to be walking around with it. You're going to be moving around with it. You're on the train. You're indoors. You're outdoors. You're sweating. You're cold, and it's an investment. So I feel like the trend purpose of it is people buying it just because. I'm not really a fan of it because
Hmm.
I buy things for the purpose of having it. So and not saying that the people that are buying it don't know what it is, but it's just for the most part from what I see.
Yeah, I mean, people buying a $400 jacket to make one small video in the shower saying it beads off is it's a
Yeah,
misinterpretation of what it actually is meant for. And it's an all-around jacket. The Beta AR is an all-around jacket
yeah,
there. I mean, talking about trends and being
yeah.
on that topic of trends, micro trends have really dominated the fashion space with brands such as Solomon, Arc'teryx, and Gorpcore itself pushed into the limelight in like 2022. In your position as a consultant and as an art director, how have these micro trends like influence you in your work?
I mean, honestly, they really don't. I know that they're there. I see it. I try not to get caught up too much in trends.
Hmm.
I just try to stick to what I like and the things that I know and what speaks to me and what feels comfortable to me. I get it. I understand it. There's no knock to it. I know that 10 to 15 years from now, people are going to be looking back and they're going to see Gorpcore as a thing, the way we look back and see certain other time periods and we take from that, which I think is good. But I don't know. And that's the thing. I don't even know if it's a micro trend or if it's just the start of something big, but
Mm.
I just feel like the future of all clothing will be more functional, one use, more I just need this one pair of pants and that's it. Like
Hmm.
these pants are waterproof, they're breathable, or they're water resistant. They have two-way stretch and they have a good look. And I could wear these to dinner, but I could also wear these while I'm at work or wear
Yeah.
them while I'm walking around the city. So I feel like that's going to be the future of it, which is why I do like Gorpcore and I understand it, but I just don't want it to get lost as just a trend where I feel like it's something that's actually it could be bigger than that.
Yeah. So do you think that like this structure where trends pop up for 6 months at a time, that it dies out and no one talks about it? So you don't think that's going to sustain in the next 5 years or so, and you think it's just going to die out slowly?
I think it's going to die out slowly. I feel like people are just starting to kind of lose interest. I don't know. I feel like with clothing, I mean, it's the one thing that we do to express our overall style and our overall emotions. Like I do feel like that's the key thing. It's just human nature, but I just feel like it's going to be more so along the lines of just it's going to be more simplified as far as like
Yeah.
how people dress and what they're wearing and things like that.
Mhm. The way you're kind of talking about this, it seems like people are slowly kind of going into a more uniform sense of style where they're kind of dressing
Yeah,
in their way and then kind of sticking to that. So you do see that as basically the future of fashion where everyone's in a more uniform sense.
yeah. I feel like people are going to just find the things that they like and they're going to just stick to it. This is the brand that I like. This is what I like to wear. This is it. I like to wear these shoes. I like to dress it like this, style it like
Mhm.
this. And I feel like that's what it's going to actually grow into. And I mean, I kind of get a sense of it now, even though it's just on the macro of it, as far as like how people are dressing. Like, if somebody's wearing Rick Owens, like you could just see it. It's like everybody's Rick Owens head to toe, or if they're in all Arc'teryx, if somebody in Arc'teryx head to toe. I feel like we're on the cusp of it, but I feel like it's just going to get a little bit more simplified as far as how people do it, where it's not going to be too much brand loyalty, but it's just more so piece loyalty. Like I like this brand for their pants, so I'm going to buy these pants. Well, I like this brand for their jackets, so I'll buy these jackets. I like this brand for their shoes, so I'll buy these shoes. I mean, right now, it's just everybody is somewhat in some form related to fashion. And it's just like when everybody's fashion, then it's just nobody's fashion. What movie was that? It was The Incredibles. And it was just
Yeah.
like when everybody's a super, then nobody's a super. So that's just how I feel like it's kind of what it is. Everybody's somewhat into fashion or fashionable, whatever it is.
Mhm. What's your uniform then? If you were being like, I'm Jordan Thomas, here's my uniform, what are you going to say?
I would definitely say a pair of good pants with some stretch to them or some room, whether it's like a twill pant or a nylon two-way stretch pant. As far as a t-shirt, I'm always in just a white t-shirt. That's
Hmm.
it.
Any brand?
Nothing.
I go to Uniqlo white tee all the time. I think that's where I get mine.
I used to go to Uniqlo for the white tees, but it's just I'm very particular about the white tee. But I mean, it's right now like I'm like stuck with a certain brand white tee right now that I've just been. That's the only thing that I've been wearing right now.
Hmm.
And as far as like jackets, I haven't worn Arc'teryx for a while. So right now it's been a lot of Montbell. Maybe it might be a Kiko jacket or you know something like that. And then I'm always wearing a auto hat. That's it.
That's
You
the Jordan
know,
Thomas
super simple.
uniform.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. So that's about it.
Yeah. Going into now something else that you're really involved in and something you have a huge passion for is art. You are someone that, when I look through your website, you are really into the details, and art in itself is all about those small details. But we saw again in 2022, we're talking a lot about 2022 because it was an interesting year for art and fashion, but there's from cans of soup being thrown at the Mona Lisa as a form of protest to like NFTs being a form of currency in art. It really saw a transition in the way art is viewed in the cultural landscape. What are your opinions of this cultural shift? And do you believe we're headed in a direction where it's like art isn't just seen as art itself, but as more of a means to an end?
I don't think art is a means to an end. I mean, I might be butchering the statement, but what is it that art imitates life?
Hmm.
So I feel like that it's art all around us. I mean, from the way we put a pen down, or we might be doing like a doodle on paper. I mean, like the people that's throwing cans of soup and gluing their hand to the wall on art. I mean, who's to say that that's not an art movement within itself?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long time ago, but I mean, I believe it was like Corbusier who, at the time during World War II, it was like their whole movement of artists. They were kind of happy at the fact of a lot of the buildings that were being destroyed because they were just saying like destroy the old and put up new buildings
Hmm.
and do like a whole new thing. So I mean, I think I feel like it's just every generation just goes through a moment of like rebellion of
Yeah.
this is old, it's time for new. So I don't think that there's going to be a sense of art ever
Hmm.
ceasing to exist. I mean, it's going to always be people creating things no matter what it is. Like I already know like 10, 15 years from now, the guy that threw soup at the wall and at the Mona Lisa and glued his hand to the wall, oh, it's going to be it's a movement within itself.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I remember listening to one of my favorite pods. It's like the Vox Explain, where they talked to those people who threw cans of soup at the Mona Lisa and like glued his
Hmm.
hand to the wall. And it's like for them, they see it as like they see art specifically as the form of protest. Those artists themselves would have wanted that challenge to come forth and would have wanted people to really,
Hmm.
use that as a platform for it. So it's really interesting to see because like on the news and like when I first read it on social media, it's this
Hmm.
crazy thing that no one can believe happened. But looking into it more, there is a sense of purpose and the sense of reasoning why and kind of challenging the thought that we all have with it, which is really cool to think about.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really read too much into it. That's really interesting, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I
That's
remember.
that's that's pretty sick. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I was listening to it, and the leader of the movement and kind of this vocal aspect, the vocal figure of it, really just was like, yeah, we
Yeah.
chose art specifically because I think that we relate to the artists themselves and why they also made art. And it was really cool to listen to that and have a just different
Yeah.
perspective because again, the news, it was like all about like they kind of portrayed them as these crazy people doing this crazy thing. It's interesting to it's just
Yeah.
interesting to hear the other side of it, which is really cool.
Send that to me, please.
Yeah, I'll send that to you. I think you'd really like the pod itself. It like really catches me up of just niche things that's
Yeah.
happening day to day. I remember this past episode I was listening to is about gas stoves and how they're trying to, eliminate that throughout households. And it's like a really like niche movement that's going on that not many people like really know about, which is super funny.
Yeah.
People wanting to keep their gas
That's really
stoves and
funny.
not want to go into electric. Yeah, I'll send that to you. It's dope.
Yeah.
Looking into this year and then beyond, what do you expect to see from the fashion and art world? I know we talked a little bit about uniformity, but are there other things that you're looking forward to? Are there any brands or artists that you're really excited to see really take that next step?
Honestly, like I'm just take things as it comes. I mean,
Yeah.
The thing is, it's just nothing amazes me anymore. I'm just more so like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Hmm.
Take it in and keep moving. So I mean, honestly, I'm looking forward for something to just like really amaze me and stop me in my tracks.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
One of the final topics we're going to talk about is what your work with Better Gift Shop and the collab you did with Solomon. You worked with Better
Hmm.
Gift Shop. You want to talk about what Better Gift Shop is basically?
Yeah, I mean, so Better Gift Shop is pretty much a museum, but it's the gift shop of a museum, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So it's pretty much the shop with inside of a museum. I mean, it's just all the things that you would see a museum that they would have. So you'll see like t-shirts by the artists, you'll see posters, you'll see art pieces, cups, pins, things like that. It's pretty much an imaginary museum and just the things that a museum shop would have. So I mean the concept of it is pretty cool, and it's the artists that they bring in to do certain projects and collaborations with. It's cool. I think those guys, they're pretty like witty as far as how they go about doing a lot of things. And I mean, being able to do the Solomons with them was definitely it was a privilege to be able to work with them on that. And it's just yeah, pretty much as far as like the overall process of design with it, we all just dress similarly, and so pretty much it's how we perceive the world as far as how we dress is just pretty much like what I was just saying. We all pretty much have our own uniform, and we wanted something that could fit all of our uniforms without overdoing it or
Hmm.
without it looking too busy and too hectic. That's just how the Solomons came about.
Yeah. My last time referencing back to the Nepenthes article, when
Hmm.
you were asked about it, you kind of told that the intention of it was to be worn in different outdoor and then urban settings. So for you,
Hmm.
when you went into that process, like were there certain aspects to the shoe that you added to make sure that it aligned with that intention itself?
Not really, because Solomon wouldn't let us do too much as far as switching materials out. It was just more so from a color standpoint. And the silhouette that we selected, every silhouette that was selected was one that we saw that transition between outdoor and city use. Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. Like it was just more so about silhouette selection over actually we want to do this Solomon Lab shoe
Hmm.
and it looks good because if you're wearing a suit, whatever like that, like it was just more so, like I wore these Solomons the other day and they're really sick. I took them hiking and then after that I went and grabbed a bear in the city. My feet felt good the whole day. And so that's just pretty much how that overall idea was birthed. Oliver Callahan and myself will be in LA, like going on hikes and things like that. And so pretty much like we'll just wear Solomons and just see like which ones felt the best.
Hmm.
That's how we came up with everything. Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about color a lot from, the details from your dad's suits to the Stussy Timberlands that you worked
Hmm.
on and to these Solomons. Like, what's Jordan Thomas's color palette here? What are your colors?
Oh man, colors. Honestly, I'll definitely say green, brown, orange, purple, yellow.
Yeah. That's your
Those would be
palette?
like that's pretty much the palette. I mean, you could throw in maybe like a navy blue in there somewhere because it just goes with everything. I'll put that between the orange and the green.
Yeah.
The blue, it just plays on both sides. It could be the pop color and it could also be just like the actual, just muted color. Yeah. That'd be like the official color palette.
Yeah. And colors are really fucking important to you. I mean, that's pretty much evident in this whole conversation and throughout your work. But is that kind of how you feel like you separate yourself from others is through the way you perceive it and the importance of it to you?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think. So, I mean, it's just like, I
Mhm,
mean, I can't speak for everyone else, but I mean, just for myself, I look at color a lot. I
mhm.
like just the color of how a certain color looks on something, or I don't know. It's just the way those certain hues or tones they mix and blend and they bounce off each other and like it's just different stories it could tell.
Mhm.
It could look chaotic, but it could also look something that's at ease. And it could be the same colors, just a different tones.
Yeah. Well, that's basically all I have. Before we end up, do you have any teasers or what can people expect from you to see in the next year?
Within the next year, it's a lot coming up. I don't
Yeah.
want to say anything. I can't say anything about it yet. I can't say anything about it yet, but it's a lot coming up.
Well, where can the people find you to keep up to date with all this shit that you're working on?
Instagram, man. That's pretty much it. Instagram, or if you just catch me walking around New York, I'm around. You know,
Well, thank you so
yeah.
much, man. I appreciate your time here.
Thank you for tuning into today's episode. Once again, I'm your host, Andrew, and I want to thank Jordan for taking the time to speak with me today, and to Sam Wallner for creating the music you heard on today's episode. This episode was all about the small details, and the way you may perceive those around you to your own color palette. So if you know someone looking to break into the fashion industry through their own perception of fashion, share with them this episode. You can find me and the shop on Instagram at Andrew Inamoto and at _August Shop. And find August located on 414 State Street, Madison, Wisconsin, or on august-shop.com. Once again, thank you for listening to the August Forum.